Are you climbing into a battle today? Welcome to the Daily Devo. I am Vince Miller. This week we are in 1 Samuel chapter 14. I've titled this chapter A Contrast of Leadership Between Jonathan and Saul. So at this point in the chapter, Jonathan and his armor bearer have slipped away from the Israeli camp. They trekked over to the Philistines and decided that they were the only ones who could take down the enemy. We left off last time with their preposterous plan to expose their position and see if the Lord would give them an opening to take the Philistines down. Next, let's see how this all plays out. First, in verses 12 through 13. And the men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, "Come up to us, and we will show you a thing." And Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Come up after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel." Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet, and his armor bearer after him. So a couple of details capture me in these first couple of verses. First, they have to scale a cliff, which requires using their hands and their feet. So this is a very exposed position for them. Second, the call to come up has two different perspectives, does it not? It's the same result from two different people. The Philistines call Jonathan to come up with the intent to kill the two of them, and Jonathan calls his armor bearer to come up with the intent to kill the Philistines. Now, this captures me because this is a challenge in just about every spiritual battle in life, isn't it? Every spiritual battle has the same goal on either side, is to win. But on one side of the fight, there's God, and on the other side, well, there's not. And when we engage in a battle, we need to be sure that we're coming up or climbing into the right side of the battle. And as we have seen, Jonathan did. He consulted God before he came up into this battle and climbed up into this big mess up there. But let's continue the text. It reads, "And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer killed them after him." Okay, that's good news. And that first strike, which Jonathan and his armor bearer made, killed about 20 men. Within it were half a furrow's length and an acre of land. And there was a panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and even the raiders trembled. The earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. Now, as far as we can tell from the text, this was probably a small outpost of Philistines a little away from the main camp. They occupied probably this small little landing here by the rocky crags, and Jonathan and the armor bearer slaughtered them. But what happens next really rattled the Philistines. The timing of this attack, the victory, and then that earthquake were all very bad omens to the rest of the Philistine camp. It sent them into this freakish panic, so much so that it awakened Saul in the Israeli army. Now, there are times in our lives when we experience events like this, right? When I experience events like this, I feel like I'm walking in perfect lockstep with God and his spirit. As I take the steps, I feel like God kind of has me hedged in, that he's going before me, he's behind me, he's beside me. And as I look up before me, I see God is doing things that only God can do. And I just keep walking along. And as believers, we should know the experiences of these moments. You see, these experiences were not just intended for Jonathan and his armor bearer. We are told about these moments because God wants us to know these moments in our own lives as well. But to experience them, we've got to fight our spiritual battles very differently, maybe, than we do right now. We need to consult with the Lord. And then we got to ask him for some signs. And then we got to trust him in faith. And then we got to act in obedience. And then when it comes to time to fight, we've got to let his will be done and his glory reign regardless of the outcome. But here's how this whole situation concludes in verses 16 down through 23. It reads, "And the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude was dispersing here and there. Then Saul said to the people who are with him, 'Count and see who has gone from us.' And when they had counted, behold, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. So Saul said to Abijah," that's the priest, "Bring the ark of God here." For the ark of God was at that time with the people of Israel. Now, while Saul was talking to the priest, The tumult in the camp of the Philistines increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, withdraw your hand, which essentially means stop what you're doing, stop your sacrifices and your prayers. Then Saul said, and all the people who were with him rallied and went into battle, and behold, every Philistine sword was against his fellow, and there was a great confusion. Okay, that's important. Now the Hebrews who had been with the Philistines before that time, who had gone up with them into the camp, even they also turned to be with the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. Likewise, when all the men of Israel who had hidden themselves in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were fleeing, they too followed hard after them in battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed beyond Beth Aven. So we discover that Saul literally sees what is happening and realizes what Jonathan has done. But you will notice two things happen before Saul even gets to battle. First, some Israelite turncoats that had joined forces with the Philistines are there. And once they see what Jonathan has done, they turn on the Philistines. This would probably look like chaos from a distance because it would be impossible to tell actual Philistine fighters from turncoat Hebrew fighters. Second, Israelites hidden in the surrounding area came out to join the fight too. This means that Jonathan's faith-filled actions stirred momentum inside and outside the Philistine ranks. Now, this is almost miraculous here. And I have seen this happen so many times in this life. It only takes one faithful believer to stir a movement for God. And I want you to know, God could use you. But the important thing to remember, if God does use you, you got to focus on the closing line in this text today. It reads again, so the Lord saved Israel that day. You know, every battle, all resources, strategy, and victory, they belong to the Lord. You know, I want you to climb into the battle with him today, but when he wins the battle, you need to make sure that with all your heart, you give him all the glory, because the glory is due to him. Don't you love this moment? I love it. I pray today that you, as a Jonathan, will lead those around you into a battle and experience the victory that God has for you on the other side. But when the victory is had, that you will give him the glory that he deserves. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else, and I'll see you right back here again.